Greetings and salutations, this is Hugh Jarsz, the biggest YouTuber ever! And I've had a fun time this week. As you can see from this picture, my hemorrhoids have been playing up. And, oh, damn it, I forgot how to do this. Yes, there we are, we're back here. Here I am. This time I haven't been here for a while because I've been busy with other things, you might say. I had a major thing I had to organise, and that's out of the way now, so I can get back to making videos and giving people a bit of fun, I hope, and getting into the flirts. They've been so much fun lately. We got people from all over the echoes. Oh, okay, that's no good. We've got people from all over the world, it seems. Maybe I'll just talk a bit closer to the microphone so I'm so sexy in my voice. And we've got Boo Manchu, hello to you. The ever-present Eileen Dover. And channel members, Daryl M and Judy Bassett. Very warm welcome to you. My mum bakes cakes, one of our people we see regularly. He's been on the show before. Mr. Bong's Lab. Okay. Paul's Heart Attack Support. I've seen you before. Come from Canada. Hope it's not too cold there. Some Fragmag 75 from Queanbeyan. You poor thing, so close to Canberra. Peter Collings, hello Peter, and Gold Digger. Yes, I'll talk about that in a minute. John Byrne, hi John, and that's about it. All right, yes, as Peter Collings and who else was it? I can't find it now quickly. Said, sadly, performer Barry Humphries has passed away. Just one sec. I've got something to show for that, and I can't seem to get rid of the other thing I've got. There we go. So, no, go away. Too many things in StreamYards to click on. And finally, I will get there. There we are. Well, did that share properly? I think it did. Yes, good. Yes, Barry Humphries has passed away, and he passed away this evening. And if you don't know quite who Barry Humphries is, that picture might help you a bit. That's Dame Edna. It's one of the characters he played. And Australians and people all over the world, really, of my age and older even, and right through to the next generation, have been enjoying Barry's performances for many, many decades now. And it's a sad loss, but we all have to go at some time. And yeah, it's a big loss. Also, that's, well, actually I shouldn't say big loss, but it's another loss. We lost Bob Nodell 2 weeks ago, and I have a little tribute to play for him. And I just realised I haven't shared the sound, so let me do that. Oh, this is all going so well. So many things to click. And let's try that again. All right, let's go. Greetings and salutations. This is Hugh Jarsz. And you might have a little difficulty hearing me. It's quite windy today. On this beautiful, glorious day near Toowoomba in Queensland, Australia. And sadly, this is a day that Bob Nodell will never see. On Thursday, Bob passed away. And this is a message to his family. It's never a great thing when a loved one passes away. And I want to express my condolences to his family, who must be missing him terribly. I hope that you can find peace at this troubled time. And as for Bob, there's only one thing to say for Bob. Thanks, Bob. All right. And yeah, condolences to Bob and Bob's family, who must be missing him. That's a real shame, but we'll actually touch on Bob's contribution to the world a bit later on. If we get that far, so many things are changing so fast at the moment. It's quite amazing. I didn't know about Barry Humphries until about 15 minutes ago. So we're adding things in as we go. So I have a special guest tonight, someone who should be familiar to most of you. Yes, Gold Dinger, that was out of Toowoomba. Yes, a special guest who needs no introduction because he's someone who's been on the show before. He's involved in the Wolf Pack. He's well known to Australians and people all over the world. He has a massive channel. Welcome to the show, Wolfie.
Surprised when you invited me earlier today, and fortunately I'm away from home and in a hotel with a lot of spare time, so I was able to join. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that you're coming to us from a secret NASA black site somewhere near Woomera firing range.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yep,
that's right. Yeah, they're giving you some reprogramming or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got to stay ahead of these flirts. You know, they're always trying to track down my location, so I'm just going from one black site to the next.
It's so hard to stay ahead of them in that, you know. I mean, you just put 3 picks in the corner and tell them to take their shovel.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I got that round the wrong way. 3 shovels in the corner and tell them to take their pick.
I've got my NASA t-shirt on though. I always wear my NASA t-shirt.
Oh, we got camera. I didn't know we get camera.
Never go anywhere without it. Yeah. Just momentarily so that you can see the NASA t-shirt.
Cool. All right then. Now I've completely forgotten what I was going to do because I got thrown by Barry Humphries. Let me look at my list. Yeah. So you saw that I had a little journey on the rocket today, last week. Well, was it 2 days ago? 2 days ago. That's what it was. Mm. Ended up in the Gulf of Mexico, unfortunately. But yes, my hemorrhoids are playing up as a result. It wasn't very comfortable. While we're here, Wolfie, we should do a shout out to Gary.
Gary?
Well, Gary, the person who's the first person to recognise me in real life.
Yes, Gary. Yes, I know Gary. I thought you were talking about a different Gary then, but yes, I do know Gary, the one you're talking about now. Hey, yeah. Gary. It was a real privilege to get your message. I appreciate it. Thanks very much, and thanks for being a follower on my channel. I'm sorry I don't do many videos recently, but 2 main reasons for that. One is family. Family takes priority. You know, my daughter's 5 now, and she takes up a lot of our time. And the second reason is flatties are just getting really boring, and just sort of repeating themselves. And I think all the genuine truth seekers that we had maybe back in 2016, 2017, they've all come back to the globe. So the ones that are left, they're just beyond help.
They are, yes, they are fun to tease though.
Well, absolutely, yeah.
I don't think Gary's listening to this live, but I'll make sure he listens to this and hears your shout out.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
So I was speaking earlier of SpaceX. Let's have a look at what happened with, hang on, that was that one. Oh, is that it? Yes, that's it. Now I can share the screen. I've got so many screens. I've got 3 screens and it's not enough. Remember when we had to do all our work on one screen? It's just amazing. Let's do that. And there we go. Let's watch the launch of the first Starship stack. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. So I'm pausing this partially for copyright reasons. I don't want them to give us a strike, but also watch for the debris that starts flying around when we look at this. Those bits there. Now I'm pausing it there to show you the banner they put across the bottom, which is quite fascinating. It has some interesting information in it. This is the liquid oxygen line here. Are you seeing my cursor? Yes, you are. It has the methane tank line here, so you can see how that fuel's being consumed. Over here, you've got the engines. There's 33 engines. 33. Hello. And it shows what they're doing, and you can see that 2 engines are out there, and there's one out there, and it's only just got off the pad, which explains a lot of things that happened later. But all that debris you saw earlier, I think that has a lot to do with it. So let's continue.
Booster upper chamber pressure is nominal.
I'm going to pause it there. That shimmering is caused by the heat wave coming towards the camera from the launch. I'm sure some flirts will say, oh, look, it's a hologram. It's shimmering. Yeah, people who can hold that sort of conspiracy for this long don't make those sort of mistakes. It's a heat shimmer.
T plus 33 seconds into the test flight of the inaugural Starship vehicle. Tower cleared, we're into pitchover. Propulsion reports first stage engines nominal. What a sight from the ground cameras at Starbase.
Another engine's gone out.
Flying at twice the thrust of the Saturn V heading to space.
Additional signal, surface 50.
We're throttled down and throttled back up.
Another one's gone.
Period of maximum aerodynamic pressure. As the velocity increases, the density of the atmosphere is decreasing.
As you can see there, it doesn't look like it's doing well. You can see how many engines are out. You can see that there's some sort of fire going on here. Doesn't bode well.
Lessening stress on the vehicle. The call out, max Q now. Continuing to watch the first.
And yes, the color of the main exhaust and this sort of side exhaust here sort of suggests that part of the fuel is engine at the moment.
Stage as we head downrange. 100 seconds into flight.
It's slowly getting worse. Another engine out.
Next major activity is going to be shutdown of the first stage. Houston tracking station now acquiring the vehicle. With shutdown, we will get separation of Starship and Super Heavy and ignition of the Starship engines. When Starship separates, we light up 6 engines in a staggered sequence. If all goes well, those 6 engines will burn for almost 6.5 minutes. Onboard view.
And I think at this point, people started to realize something's wrong. There shouldn't be a flame like this. It shouldn't be bending over like this. Strange. They're only 24 kilometers up, and they can pretty. I mean, it's probably a fisheye lens, I guess, but it's a pretty clear curve, isn't it?
From Starship, and there's views of the Raptor engines on the second stage as we prepare for stage separation. Now, after stage separation, the first stage will flip and begin a boost back maneuver for landing in the Gulf.
And now you're pretty certain that something's wrong because it's just tipping over.
Continuing to fly, 2 minutes, 40 seconds. Let's get ready for main engine cutoff.
It's as if the commentators aren't even watching the screen.
Beginning to flip for stage separation.
No, it doesn't do that for that reason. It's doing that because it's been in trouble. More engine coming out of the exhaust.
As of right now, we are awaiting stage separation.
No, we're not. We're awaiting explosion.
Where Starship should separate from the Super Heavy booster.
Yeah, Kate, right now it looks like we saw the start of the flip, but obviously we're seeing from the ground cameras the entire Starship stack continuing to rotate. We should have had separation by now. Obviously, this is does not appear to be a nominal situation.
That's an understatement.
Spinning, but I do want to remind everyone that everything after clearing the tower was icing on the cake.
And there she goes. And I might just go back just a little bit, just look at the final telemetry. So all the liquid oxygen was gone, and they just had a little bit of methane left. So that's interesting. And apparently it's been confirmed that by the FAA that the flight termination protocols were used, and they blew it up, basically. The only fuel it had left was in the Starship itself rather than the booster. So there wasn't a lot of issue. It was over the Gulf of Mexico, so it wasn't going to hurt anyone. But what a thing, eh? What do you think, Wolfie?
Yeah, that was very spectacular. I watched it the first time, but just watching it again with your pauses and commentary, it's just very, very enlightening. It was interesting how many engines were dropping out, and it still had plenty of thrust to continue. And the comment they made that anything past clearing the tower was a bonus, So they expect these failures. I know people, the technology and the development is just mind-blowing. It's way beyond developing a new aircraft at this stage, developing something. And I heard a commentary say that it's got twice the power of the Saturn V, so it's really, really mind-boggling how much power that thing has. So to get it up that far on this occasion, I guess you could see it as a success, and they'll learn from it, and they'll improve the design, and they'll go better next time.
And yeah, this is the iterative approach that SpaceX uses. The Falcon 9, it blew up plenty of times, but now it's one of the most reliable boosters ever used.
Yes, exactly.
Because they learn from that experience.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very old saying in aviation, that you're only as experienced as a number of mistakes you make, and it's very true. You make a mistake that is potentially dangerous or that frightens you, you're never going to make it again.
Yeah. So I pointed out at the beginning there were big chunks of, basically concrete from the launch pad flying around, and that's probably what took out some of the engines at the start, at least, and damaged maybe others, which eventually went out. Well, this video is from the ground level. It's apparently from a car parked some distance away, but fairly close, obviously too close. There's a whole bunch of cameras around and another car with a camera on top. Let's have a watch at this video.
Sure.
Watch the car on the left in particular. This is from Lab Padre's channel, by the way. Oh, there it goes. Direct hit on the car. See the concrete coming through. That's some asphalt from the looks of it. That was pretty significant.
Yeah, it gives you an idea of just how much energy is being emitted by that rocket.
Yeah, they reckon they're going to have to redesign the launch pad, and it's probably going to take them a year to be able to get to fly again, because they obviously can't use that pad again.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Most pads build like a fire tunnel where they divert the exhaust away so that it doesn't dig a hole, or they have water jets coming in to sort of reduce the effect of the flames and things. But for some reason, SpaceX didn't go that way. I don't really understand that, seeing it has the power of 2 Saturn Vs. The other thing about it was that, damn it, I had it and I lost it. Yes, so you've probably seen pictures that of the launch pad. Since then, it's just this big hole in the ground. And the problem at Boca Chica, I think it's called, it's the water table is very close to the surface, so they can't sort of dig down too much because it wouldn't work really well. So yeah, it's you'd think they would have learned by now. It's not the first time they've launched this thing, but maybe they haven't done it at full power before. You think they would have tested that before they tried to put something in orbit, but oh well.
I guess you don't know if that was actually part of the test. They want to test how well the plate stands up to that sort of power. I have no doubt that they fully expected the thing wouldn't go perfectly and that they might have to explode it. So maybe it was just try to get it flying and see what the end result is with that pad as exists. I mean, I don't know. That's just a guess.
And the other thing I lost was that the tanks that fuel the rocket are just right next to it. Basically, they had these big sand bars up, but they were sort of all destroyed by the flying concrete, and there were dents in it. No doubt, stuff came back and hit the rocket. In fact, if you go back to the beginning of the launch, there's something sort of way off to the left that lands there. Yeah, that's a significant firecracker. Put it that way.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So one of your passions is astronomy.
Yes.
And one thing I want to show you, although it's not a lot to see, so I'll try and speed it up. Last weekend, we had a very strange event in Brisbane where the Chinese space station and the ISS came over within 10 minutes of each other and both blinked out. Both blink out passes, and they both blinked out in pretty much the same area of the sky, quite near the Southern Cross. So I filmed that. Most of the film is just a light in the sky, so it's not going to work very well. I couldn't get to zoom in enough, but at the end you'll see that. So let's just show that. All these steps. I can't believe I have to do like 6 clicks just to share a screen. There we go. All right, so I'm going to fast forward to about there. So this is the ISS, is this little dot here. So let's just watch that and we'll watch it. Sorry, that's the CSS. This is the Chinese space station. And while I had a tripod, I had to I couldn't really track it with what I had because I just had a camera tripod and a camera. And you see it's blinking out because it's moving into the Earth's shadow. And then I move over. Oh, no, I just... And there's the pointers, yeah. And I'm scrolling up to see the Southern Cross. Although it's a bit faint. So that shows where the CSS ended up that time. Let's go to the ISS. So again, I'll jump to the end. So I was hoping I'd get a little bit of detail on this one, but maybe not. So I had the tripod leaning on my car, but I had to have only one leg on it so I could move it around. And it was hard to track because it's just one tiny pixel on the tiny screen.
I think you did really well at that zoom level.
Yeah, I'm hoping once I sort out my telescope, I can get a tracking with the telescope. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
But the point is where it finished. So here it is blinking out because it's moving into the Earth's shadow.
Yeah.
And just next to it, which will be there in a sec. There it is. There's the pointers. So that's Alpha and Beta Centauri. And then above them were the Southern Cross. So just to prove that they finish in the same sort of area. So that's an unusual event in Queensland.
Nice.
But now we've got to figure out how to do that. You took some images lately too.
Yeah, I'd like to get the Orion Nebula. It's one that is quite easy to get from where I live in Sydney, even though there's quite a lot of light pollution. It's bright enough that when you stack a few of the images, you can get a reasonable result.
How's that one?
Is that the one you were talking about?
That's the one you sent me.
Yeah, that's right. That's the Orion Nebula. That's it.
So this one's you sent me 3 pictures. There's this one, which is a slightly different color to this one.
Yeah, and that's just once I've got all the images and you stack them together, you can just edit the levels a little bit just to try and bring out the detail. But okay. the other one I sent you was basically how you get in. Yeah, that's the one. That's just showing that what happens when a satellite goes straight through the image, and the frames that you take, they can be anything from like 10 to 20 second individual frames, and you'll take one frame, then you'll take another one, then you'll take another one, and the software just stacks them so that basically you get more and more clarity and more detail. It aligns them and stacks them. So you're getting effectively like 5 minutes worth of exposure to get the final image. But that one there is just one single frame that is obviously useless because it's got a satellite cutting straight through the middle of it. And this is becoming more and more of a problem for astronomers, that, I literally can't point the telescope in the sky without seeing a satellite these days. You'll
all the Starlink stuff.
Yeah, all the Starlink stuff. And, in a typical session, if I've got the telescope out for a couple of hours, I'll see dozens of satellites. So they're definitely up there, and they're exactly where the software predicts that they will be. So how the flat earthers continue to deny their existence is just beyond me.
It's because they're idiots.
Yeah, I see Daryl M in the comments asking, what telescope do you have? I've got a couple of different ones at home. I've got some Celestron SCTs, a 9¼ inch one and a 6-inch one, which I tend to use more because it's lighter and it's easier to set up. And also a couple of Skywatcher refractors. I've got an 80mm refractor and also a 76mm one. And they're just nice and easy to set up, very easy to use. These images were taken with the 76mm.
Yeah, and Daryl, if you're interested in Wolfie's astronomy, he does mention it on his channel a lot. There's a link to his channel in the description. But I think Golddinger's comment that it's a P1000 is interesting, isn't it? It's not out of focus, so it can't be a P1000.
No, I never bought the P1000. I bought the P900, and then I got into telescope, so I sort of didn't worry too much about the P900 much more after that.
He says it looks like a crack in the dome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a rainbow today, and I was thinking, yeah, Flirs will say that's the dome.
Yeah.
Anyway, what other astronomy things are you up to at the moment?
Not a great deal. I've just been hampered by bad weather. I had the telescope when I was over in America. I was there for nearly a month, went to Europe. It was cloudy just about every night. Then I came home for a month, and it was almost cloudy every single night. And then I went back to America for 2 weeks, and it was cloudy every day. So I had a little portable telescope that I'm carrying with me. I've even got it with me in this room here, but I just haven't really had the opportunity to do anything. But one thing that I like to do around every equinox, and this is Wally's idea, is to try and film the geostationary satellites eclipsing. They're as regular as clockwork. You have a couple of weeks before the equinox until a couple of weeks after the equinox. You can see them blinking out at various lengths of time, with the maximum time right on the day of the equinox. So there's another geometry that just cannot be explained by any flat Earth.
Oh, Colin's here. Good to see Wolfie out and about. Can you ask if he got in touch with Michael in LA as I tried to set up with Wally? Does that mean anything to you?
No, I didn't have a chance to get in touch with anybody, unfortunately. Yeah, didn't get down to LA. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, the trips are always quite unpredictable. Like I literally thought I was going to be home this week, and then one came up, and headed off on Monday, and probably won't be home until Wednesday next week. But yeah, just seem to be doing a lot of flying since we got the new aeroplane, and with the pandemic supposedly over and the skies open again, we're sort of making up for lost time. Yeah.
The boss is working you hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so that's the space part of the show. Now we're going to a different space, the space between flat earthers' ears, which seems to be both infinite and very tiny at the same time. It's like a reverse TARDIS. So the first I've got 3 derpers lined up. I'm not sure how far we'll get because, well, you'll see what I mean when you see the videos I'm going to play. Yes, like the first one's nearly 24 minutes long, and I would play it on fast speed, but then you won't have a clue what the hell the guy is saying. And the first one is from Brian's Logic, and he's calling this one Light Gyro Globe Death. I think there's a lot of things he doesn't really understand. So let's have a listen to him for a while. I'll stop, of course, and we can have a laugh at a few things, because believe me, we are going to laugh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, hopefully I can speak loud enough. I'm trying to keep quiet, not to wake up other people who live with me.
I've just got to stop there, even though he hasn't said anything yet. Thank you, Daryl M. You've just gifted 5 Hugh Jarsz memberships. Wow, that's never happened before. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you too. And if I can see 2 people have got one already. Please give Daryl M a big thank you in the chat. I'm sorry I have to repay you by playing Brian's Logic. We'll continue on.
Okay, this is going to be about the nonsense that we often hear from the opposing side concerning light gyros, right? Because they seem to think that if someone did measure 15 degree per hour drift with a light gyro, whether it be a fiber optic or a ring laser gyro, they seem to think, well, the smart ones know that it's not a win for them. It's actually a loss for them. But most of them aren't thinking that way. You know, most of the opposition are not thinking that way. They don't realize that it's actually a loss for them. Because there is no...
I wonder if the reason we're not thinking that it's a loss for us is that it's not a loss for us.
Yeah, I feel sorry for Brian. I just pity the guy. I just can't feel anything but pity for him.
Anyway, I keep trying to precursor this, but you have to watch it for yourself. So I'll let him continue.
Yeah. Evidence, right, that I have ever seen that a light gyro or any gyro picks up a drift of 15 degrees per hour, or any drift. The whole point of a gyro is that it holds rigid in space. Now, I want to give a little bit of a background on gyros.
So did you hear that? He thinks gyros aren't supposed to show any drift at all. Isn't that the exact opposite of the way a gyro works?
Oh, it's such a misconception. I mean, in a perfect world, a perfect gyro that is being spun without any torque, without any friction, without any bearing resistance, any external forces, it might hold a perfect orientation. But, that's not what happens in the real world. Every single gyro in an aircraft has numerous errors that can cause it to drift, and that's why they always have these correction mechanisms of various different styles. But yeah, they just have this very naive understanding of gyros that they somehow magically should be rock steady in space no matter what, and it's just not the case.
I just see Colin said just Brian thinking is a loss for humanity. Yes, true. And PhD Tony said earlier, what Newton and Einstein did for science, Brian has done for stupidity. And he'll prove it in this video. Let's let him continue, otherwise we're going to be here all night.
Sure.
A small bit of a background on gyros, but I don't want to spend too long on it. Both the mechanical and light gyros, right, will experience precession if they are not spun up to the correct RPMs. If you look at gyro compasses, it takes 4 hours for a mechanical gyro within a gyro compass to spin up to its correct RPMs. And it takes half an hour to 40 minutes for a light gyro. It takes at least half an hour, if not 40.
Is he really saying a ring laser gyro needs to spin up?
I think that's what he's saying, but he's confusing it completely with the avionics that actually are just taking their time to determine their latitude by detecting the rotation of the Earth. That can take quite a bit of time, and it depends on your latitude. But yeah, obviously a light gyro doesn't take 40 minutes to spin up.
And what about a mechanical one?
Well, I don't know. I mean, certainly the ones in the light aircraft I used to fly, they didn't take that long. An artificial horizon can spin up to speed within 3 to 5 minutes, typically. But yeah, it's not going to be an instantaneous thing with a mechanical gyro. I've got a little artificial horizon that I've shown in a number of videos that I just bought on eBay, and I just connect it up to a 27-volt power supply. It works perfectly, but even that will take maybe 3 minutes until it's up at operating RPM fully.
But not 40.
Not 40. I don't know about a gyro compass. I'm not totally familiar with those. They're used mainly on ships. So there may be versions that take that long. I don't know. I can't refute that claim because I simply don't know. Yeah.
But it seems unlikely.
Seems like a long time. Yeah. Seems like a long time. It may be more a case of, the gyro comes up to speed and then it could take up to 40 minutes before it aligns itself, because it then has to align itself with north. And, the whole process from turning the thing on until it's reliably showing you what direction north is, that could take 40 minutes, I suppose.
Yeah, and so it's typical. He's heard something, he's not understood what it was, and now he's presenting it incorrectly.
That's Brian in a nutshell. That's Brian.
It's Flurfs in a nutshell.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's how they misunderstand things. Anyway, we'll let him keep going.
Sure. For a light gyro to spin up to its correct RPMs for what they need it to be, right? And that's.
But I just love that he thinks a light gyro has RPMs. It doesn't have anything that rotates. It's a light.
It just shows you that he just has no concept in his head of how these things work. Yeah.
And he hasn't bothered to find out either.
No, exactly.
And yet he's here presenting this as truth.
Yeah.
It's not coming from me. That's coming from an Indian captain, an Indian man who was a captain of, who was a ship captain of big ships, container ships, whatever, right? And I learned that from his videos online. You can find them. I'm not going looking for them now and all the rest of it.
So, and typically, like a Flurf quotes something, doesn't give you any way of checking it out. We just got to expect that he's telling the truth. And he might well be, based on what you've said, Wolfie. The ship ones might take that long to align themselves, but again, it's not because they're spinning up, or unlikely to be anyway.
Yeah, agreed.
But both gyros will precess. Now, they won't precess at 15 degrees per hour, but they will precess because they're not spun up to the correct RPMs before they're used, right? That's just within the gyro compasses. Now, so the problem is with that is this, right? Or sorry, there's no problem with that, but the problem for the globe side with that is this. It's that when they are spun up to the correct RPMs, they don't need anything, right? They hold rigid in space. That's what they're designed to do. The only example of them not holding rigid in space is mechanical gyros on aircraft, because of banking and different things can knock out the gyro, right? So
And another misconception he's obviously having here is holding rigid in space. He thinks it holds in space, but he's sort of ignoring the fact that it already has vectors. The rotation of the Earth and the speed of the plane and so on.
Yes, exactly.
He just doesn't seem to have that concept.
Yeah. What he said was right, though. I'll give him that the bank can throw out the gyro a little bit.
Yeah.
With the old artificial horizons, you're getting a little Cessna 152 or a Cessna 172. If you're flying an instrument approach in a holding pattern, if you go around and around in a circle, say for 2 full 360-degree turns, that instrument is going to be quite out from its original orientation by maybe 5 to 10 degrees. Just depends on how long you've held the turn. So when you're doing an instrument rating flight, the holding patterns, they're deliberately not circles. They are ovals where you have a 180-degree turn, and then you'll have a minute or 2 minutes of straight flying, and that's just to give the gyro a chance to sort of realign itself, so the errors don't become too great when you're actually continually turning like that. But I mean, there's so many other errors. If you want to research on Google, you just look up artificial horizon errors, and you'll see a whole bunch of them. You'll see acceleration errors, turning errors, physical errors. If the speed is not correct, it won't hold its position as reliably. But there's a whole bunch of reasons why the gyro can move from its supposed rigid position in space, and that's why, as I've shown in my videos, why they have the correction mechanisms, the pendulous vanes, which will continually try to orientate the gyro to show horizontal with respect to the direction that it is sensing as down. That's what the pendulous vanes do. They sense the direction of down, and they align the gyro so that it's always going to be horizontal based on the local vertical.
Yes, you know what the FLIRS will hear out of that statement? That there are errors with it.
Yeah.
Therefore, they're no good.
No, well, they're one of the first things I saw when I first encountered flat earthers is they thought that you get on the runway and you hit a line on the gyro and then it never moves after that, that it's just perfect, holding its orientation perfectly for the next 12 hours of flying. And I'm just thinking, God, you guys you're like children. Your understanding is less than that of a child. I understood these instruments better than the average FLIR when I was 12. And I just think, like, are they genuinely this naive? Are they this gullible? People like Debay tell them something and they will just believe it because it is explained to them in such a simple way that they can accept it that way. But if you look at an actual manual for a gyro, they start talking about vectors and all the errors, and their brains just, I think their eyes just glaze over and they just don't want to hear it.
Yeah, it gets beyond their understanding, so they're just not engaging. They're just sticking to the talking point their Papa FLIR brainwashed them with.
Absolutely, yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
So let's let him go on.
Some movements in that aerobatics, especially with fighter jets and stuff, can knock out the gyro a little bit, right, and cause a bit of precession. So they add pendulous vanes, right, which is a damper apparatus, just like they have dampers for earthquakes. It's in buildings. It's a damper apparatus to stop. It's a vacuum system to stop the gyro from being knocked out, right, and it does, and then processing a bit. But it's only processing because it was knocked out of its position, right? But it won't be processing at 15 degrees per hour. Now, as I said, there is absolutely no evidence that I have ever seen in 8 years, right, that gyros will process, right, once at 15 degrees per hour.
If you rummage in the same garbage bin for 8 years looking for a bar of gold, you're probably not going to find one. Why these idiots think that the length of years they've been looking at this, when they haven't been looking at what they needed to look at, means anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I'm being too complete in my statements. I'm not giving you anything to talk back with.
No, that's okay. No, it's great. Yeah. All he's got to do is look up wander precession, in aviation. And wander precession is errors that are induced because the gyro is being moved across a curved Earth. It's like, you can Google wander precession in aircraft gyro, and it'll tell you all about it.
So Brian, I'm pretty sure you'll.
Yeah.
Brian, I'm pretty sure you'll get to see this. So look that up and tell us all about it.
Yeah.
And as I said, they only precess when they're not spun up to the correct RPMs, and the mechanical gyro will cause problems, or did cause some problems before they added the pendulous vanes, right? Only because of the banking and different aerobatics with an aircrane. Sorry.
So he's mixing up two different problems there. There's the precession due to the rotation of the Earth, with precession based on the movement of the aircraft. They're different things.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And what I've said in my videos on the gyro is that the gyroscope, well, the pendulous vanes, the correcting mechanisms, they don't care what causes the error. They don't care. They don't care if it's due to the rotation of the Earth. They don't care if it's due to maneuvering of the aircraft, if it's due to friction in the bearings or slightly incorrect RPMs. They actually don't care. All they do is when they notice an error, they will correct it. So basically, and it's a combination of everything. It's a combination of the plane going around the curvature of the Earth and the instrument error and the accelerations and the turbulence and everything. The pendulous vanes are just correcting it constantly to remain oriented correctly. When you see flat earthers saying, can you prove that it is correcting just for the curvature of the Earth? Well, it's not just correcting for the curvature of the Earth. It's correcting for the combined number of errors that can occur with the gyro. It's just doesn't care what's causing the error. It just fixes it. So, my counter argument is, can you prove it's not correcting for the curvature of the Earth? And you can't. They can't do that. Yeah.
And an analogy to that is the pilots or even someone driving a car is constantly correcting all the time. It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like saying, okay, you're driving a car on the road. Exactly how much correction are you making for the road camber? Nobody can tell you that. You just
or potholes even.
Yeah, you don't think about it. You just, whatever happens, wheel alignment, slight crosswind, or road angle or bending. The driver doesn't think about that. He just makes corrections to the steering wheel to remain in the lane, and that's what the airplane does.
Yeah. Anyway,
airplanes, right, can cause that, can knock out the gyro, right, which is understandable, right. But that doesn't happen to the light gyros. Right, they don't need pendulous vanes for the light gyros. That's why they like light gyros more, because there isn't mechanical working parts in the same way. They work off of lasers and light, right. One is two lasers, one traveling at a further distance than the other, creating an interference pattern. The other one is similar, it's just light moving at two different directions through.
So he does understand that light gyroscopes have nothing to do with spinning up. He's just described it in a way that there's no way that I think he just generally doesn't understand.
Yeah, I think that's a common thing with Brian, not understanding.
Yes. What a surprise.
Through fiber optic cable, right? That's the basics of it. You can research them and look into them all you want, right? Doesn't matter. But it doesn't matter. Let's just say someone did, right? Let's just say someone did come up with a 15 degree per hour drift registered by a light gyro. Right? We'll use light gyros because they're the most precise, right? And most futuristic, let's just say, or current, let's just say, right? So let's just say someone did come up with that. How does that help the globe? It doesn't help them at all. And I'll show you why it doesn't help them. Now, what I find very funny, I must say this before I go further, what I find very funny is in all these years, I've been at it 8 years, right? In all them years, not once have any of the opposition, right, gone and got a light gyro and gone and proven this. The only thing they have was a fraudulent documentary from 2018 where a now deceased member of the flat earth community, for some reason or other, due to his own personal beliefs in a thing called ether, right, claimed that him or someone close to him had measured a 15 degree per hour drift, right, in a fiber optic gyro. That was his claim. Now, regardless, it doesn't matter to me what claims were made, right, by this man within this documentary. The point of this is it doesn't matter if that really did happen. Now, it can't happen because how gyros are designed, right? The whole point of a gyro is it doesn't precess, right? And to give an example of that, right?
So I think it's worthwhile remembering that his main point is gyros don't precess, but that's kind of the point of them, I would have thought.
Yeah, exactly.
If they didn't precess, what good are they? So yeah, he just doesn't understand. I don't think he understands what precess means. It does not clear that he understands that. We're getting close to the really good bits. I'm going to have to put the facepalm warning up soon.
In the Sperry Mark 1, right, gyro compass, right, the gyro, right, is connected. The arm of the gyro, it's a vertical gyro, and the arm of the gyro is connected by a sprung wire, right, to the compass card. So if that gyro was precessing, right out of position, what would happen is that wire that's connected between the arm of the gyro and the zero on the compass card, and the 0 points to north, right? What would happen is the compass card would be pulled away out of its position, so it wouldn't be holding rigid in space. So then they wouldn't be pointing to north, making gyro compasses pointless, right? But we know they're not pointless, and they do hold rigid, right, because of the gyroscope. So,
did that mean anything to you? Because I didn't. He's talking about internal workings of a gyroscope, and I've never pulled one apart.
No, my eyes just glazed over listening to that. So
He's talking about some sort of arm, and if it was processing it, it would be pulled out of the way. It wouldn't point to north. I'm thinking, surely they know that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And if it's a light one, that's not relevant.
No, exactly. Well, even the inertial reference systems on aircraft that use the light gyros, the laser ring gyros, they still have stabilized platforms based on accelerometers that keep the whole thing generally orientated to horizontal based on your location on the Earth. So they still do use a system. It's not a pendulous vane. It's not a mechanical pendulous vane, but it's electronic accelerometer that effectively does the same thing. So, even the light gyros in aircraft certainly are being corrected.
Okay, let's continue.
So if that gyroscope, if the mechanical gyroscope in a gyrocompass was processing, right, then it would be pulling it. Just use the Sperry Mark 1 because that's one of the original gyrocompasses. If it would be processing, if it was processing, it would be pulling the zero out of position. So
you mentioned the Sperry Part 1. God, that's an old name.
Okay.
But why do FLIRs always go back to like the very first version of something and then ignore the years and years of development since then?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the gyro compass won't work without the rotation of the Earth. If the Earth was not rotating, then there's nothing it can sense. So it has no idea which way is north. That's what I think he's just missing the whole point here. He's like avoiding the elephant in the room, that the whole basis upon how they work is to detect the precession caused by the rotation of the Earth. And by doing that, they can understand which way the Earth is rotating, and from that they can determine which way is north. It's like the gyro compass is a fairly evident proof that the Earth is not stationary.
Yeah, north's basically 90 degrees to the rotation, isn't it? So,
yeah. I see Gary Weibanger in the comments. Why don't you invite him in, Hugh? He always likes to chat on the sidelines, but I wonder if he's man enough to come in and have a chat with us here right now.
Gary, would you like to do that? You can find me on Discord, send me a message, and we'll see what we can do.
Gary always, one thing I've noticed with Gary, he tends to bring up the same points every time. And, when I ask him questions, he does it on my channel, does it on other channels. And when I ask him questions, he'll just run away, so.
Yeah, because he doesn't understand his points.
No, he doesn't. And he's just very easy to corner. But so, Gary, this is a do or die moment for you. You can run away again, or you can come into the chat and face us, and let's talk about your knowledge about gyroscopes and equatorial mounts in particular.
If someone can contact Gary through Discord, can you send me a message and I'll send you the link that you can pass on to him? I see a message from Boo Manchu there. Where's it gone? Sweet Sagan, the facepalm is already at over 9,000. It's too early to smoke more facepalm protection. I'm starting to feel I need to show this. Sorry, wrong one. I want the warning. Headphone warning.
Headphone warning. 3, 2, 1. Severe facepalm warning is in effect. Oven mitts mandatory from this point forward. You are at risk of pummeling yourself to death with facepalm.
So we don't want anyone pummeling themselves to death. Please get your facepalm protection in. We're getting very close to probably one of the stupidest things I've seen in some time. Let's let Brian continue for a bit.
That would mean that the ship's captain and the navigators would think north is in a direction it's not in. The whole point of the gyrocompass is that it holds north for a time. It does have to be realigned, right, because of angles. It does have to be realigned, so they have to reset it with a magnetic compass every few hours or every whatever length of time. They need to reset it because where was north once they move. I'll have to show it in a moving diagram, and I will sometime. Where was north is not north anymore because they've moved their position, but it doesn't matter. The point is that to even hold it as north, that gyroscope can't be processing, because if it does, the zero is moving on the compass card, the whole compass card is moving around, then nobody knows where north is, right? Making the gyrocompass a pointless apparatus. And we know it's not pointless, but they use them. They've been using them for I don't know how long, decades. So taking all that into account, right, and taking into account that our opposition have never never, with all the money they have on their side, they have never, and they could get together, get a load of money together if they wanted, and get a fiber optic gyro. It's about $12,000, something like that, or a ring laser if they wanted, which is about $20,000 US dollars. I just work in US dollars because it's an easy transition to anyone's currency.
Get on with it.
So they could have got one of these, and they could have, especially the pilots and stuff, supposedly, right, we all know they're fraudulent pilots, one in particular, on their side, who could have got.
I wonder who he's referring to there.
Oh, I've been living rent-free in his head for years, and I just laugh every time. But one thing I find, it's funny just listening to him. You know, I'm just listening to him, and I'm just chuckling quietly to myself. It's like he actually thinks that we take him seriously, and he actually thinks, he actually thinks that like we care enough to go and spend $20,000 just to convince him. You know, it's like, well, somebody's already done it. Thanks, Bob. Rest in peace. But aside from that, there are so many other easy ways to prove the Earth is not flat without going to spend $20,000 on a laser gyro. You know, and I've addressed these with him many times, and I've invited him to debate me on flight planning, which is my personal go-to, you know, for proving that the Earth is not flat. The flight plans prove the Earth is a globe. You know, you calculate them using the equatorial radius of the Earth and the flattening ratio and the spheroid. If the Earth was flat, the calculations I've been using for 40 years in aviation simply wouldn't work, and flat earthers just don't even want to go there. I've had a lot of fun in the last couple of years, basically offering every flat earther I encounter the opportunity to present an alternative to the globe for flight planning. Of course, they have nothing, so they back down straight away, and then to present that in a live debate with me, and they all back down. In fact, I've got almost no flat earthers coming to my channel anymore because they know they're going to be offered the chance to debate me, and then they have to back down in front of the audience. It's quite funny.
As Simon Johnny did, as Gary Bengus appears to have done. I'm not getting any messages. So
they always back down. And this is the thing, you know, just to your audience too, if you really want to just corner a flat earther, one question will do it every time. Can you show me an alternative to the globe for flight planning? And they'll come up with all these excuses, and just ignore the excuses, just ignore the deflections, and say, you need to show me an equation that calculates distances between any 2 points on the Earth that does not rely on the globe. And they are stumped. And that's the end of the conversation, because they will never have one.
Yeah. And there's a joke now. How do you get flat earthers to talk about the globe? Ask them for flat Earth evidence.
Exactly.
Because they never talk about flat Earth evidence. They never talk about how they came to believe, what evidence caused them to believe it, because it wasn't evidence that caused them to believe it. It was emotion, basically, or they were brainwashed by some idiot.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So I expect Gary Benga is going to turn up any minute now. I'm sure he will.
He's gone very quiet since we asked him to come on.
I want to ask him about his experience with equatorial mounts, because he always likes to bring those up when I encounter him. So come on, Gary. Come on. I'm laughing.
Don't be a chicken.
Yeah, don't be a chicken, Gary. Come on.
So I'm noticing we're at 8:57.
All right, let's go. I'm sorry to
and Brian's about to say something that just blows my mind with its stupidity.
Okay.
He can say it with a straight face. It just amazes me. But so everyone, face palm protection ready.
Got one and done, showing this drift, but they never did it, right? And I think the reason they never did it is because, number one, they know they can't, because it doesn't do that. But even if it could, even if the gyros did show this precision, it's no good to them. I'm going to show why. Right? Let's just say that this is a drone, right, or helicopter, or plane hovering, right, over this point on a globe Earth, right? This here is a celestial body, a star, right, whatever, right? So when this is within their claim, they have to claim the conservation of momentum. Now, this is a very loose claim, and it's totally incorrect from their side, because what they're actually claiming is the conservation of linear momentum, which has nothing to do with a circle or a sphere. What they should be claiming is the conservation of angular momentum. But for angular momentum, the object has to be actually attached to the Earth. So
that's not the thing that I'm referring to. That must be coming up next. it's conservation of momentum. It doesn't matter whether it's linear or angular. That's just how you look at it. It's still the momentum that's conserved because it had that in the first place, and it's moving to a place where it affects what's going on.
Yeah, I think Brian, like many other flirfs, they hear these words by watching videos and reading text, but they just don't have a mental picture that is accurate, that matches the word. So they'll just throw the words out, and it sounds impressive to other flirfs, and they go, "Wow, he knows what he's talking about." But when you actually listen carefully, he's just got no idea what he's talking about. Really, none whatsoever.
Because when you think of Coriolis, a bullet going north, for example, or south, whichever. It'll drift to the right if it's going north, and that's a change in angular direction. I guess it's not angular momentum; it still has the same momentum. Well, I guess air resistance is reducing it somewhat, but that's a minor thing. So it has linear momentum because it has momentum in a direction, but that's changing relative to the surface of the Earth. Of course, in another frame of reference, it's not changing, depending on what you're having it in relation to. So relative to, that's the word.
Most flat earthers don't even. If you want to keep going, I won't sort of sidetrack. I can come back to it later and talk a bit more about Coriolis, but maybe if you want to just keep playing and we can.
He's about to talk about Coriolis, and that's where the peak stupid is hit.
Okay, great.
So get an earful of this.
So sure. This object here would have to be attached to the surface of the globe Earth to be brought around for the momentum of a rotating globe Earth to bring it around in a circle, right? So they can't claim the conservation of angular momentum because they're claiming things that aren't attached to the Earth's surface are being brought around in a circle. So they go and they claim the conservation of linear momentum, which has nothing to do with circles or globes or spheres. It's linear. It's straight line. It's nothing to do with it. And people.
Neither. Oops. I've done a wrong thing there. But neither have anything to do with the surface of the globe. It's just whatever momentum it has.
Yeah, exactly.
We're just looking at it relative to the surface of the Earth.
Yeah, and that. Sorry.
Yeah, you go. Yeah.
No, just one of the common claims flat earthers make is a helicopter. If you take off and you just hover there, the Earth should move underneath. That's just completely wrong for so many reasons. And the first one is, I've got 3,000 hours in helicopters, and when you're in a hover, you are working hard to hold yourself in the one position. If you stop concentrating and stop applying constant inputs, that helicopter is going to drift immediately. It's literally going to drift immediately, start drifting immediately and going out of its correct orientation. In a hover, there's not a second goes by where you're not putting in some corrective input to either the rudder pedals or the collective or the cyclic, just to keep it in the one position. You've got references ahead and to the side, you use your peripheral vision. You're constantly making corrections. So that throws that argument out of the window. And the other thing is, and this is something I've tried to discuss with Brian a number of times. He's blocked me recently because I guess he just got annoyed of me asking questions he was afraid to answer. But I kept telling him that, you're never going to understand this until you have a good understanding of aerodynamics, and you're never going to understand aerodynamics until you're prepared to look at the lift formula, the lift equation or the drag equation. And as soon as you bring the word equation into the discussion, he would just run away. He just had no interest in looking at the maths. It uses a velocity squared relationship in the lift equation and the drag equation. And he's admitted in other videos that he doesn't understand how square roots work, so he's just hopelessly out of his depth when it comes to understanding even the most basics of aerodynamics. But the basic idea is if you've got a 50-mile-an-hour wind and you throw a balloon up into the air, it's not just going to go straight up. It's going to extremely quickly adopt the velocity of the wind, and even though an aircraft can weigh 100 tons or more, it's a huge surface area. So, the aeroplane is also always adopting the motion of the wind it is flying through. And that's the whole reason why we have indicated airspeed and ground speed. And, if you're flying at 500 miles an hour and you're flying into a headwind that is 100 miles an hour, your ground speed is going to be 400 because the plane's speed across the ground is being completely affected by the wind it's flying through. So, the Coriolis is never as much of a problem as they think, because, the airplane or the helicopter or any vehicle sort of detached from the surface is not detached from the air, and the atmosphere is generally moving with the Earth itself. So, it's the plane, the object moving through the air is picking up the energy of the air itself, which compensates for most of the Coriolis anyway.
Yeah, FLIRFs don't get scaled. FLIRFs don't get summation of forces. They don't think, oh, well, you can't fly in a straight line because Coriolis is on it. Coriolis is like 1 kilometer an hour in effect. In one direction. Yeah. You can easily adjust for that.
It's so tiny, and I've got all these videos of recent flights because we've got beautiful cameras on the aeroplane now. I've got external cameras on the fin and underneath, and we can record the footage on iPads as we're flying. I've got a whole bunch of approaches I did recently, and you can see, when basically my personal technique is I just leave it on autopilot till about 1,000 feet because I'm lazy, and then at 1,000 feet I'll just kick off the autopilot and I'll hand fly the last little bit, every time. And as soon as you take it off autopilot, you're making corrections every few seconds. Even in a calm day, you're making constant little corrections all the time. And I'm not saying it's purely for Coriolis, it's for numerous reasons. But any residual error that Coriolis might cause is just so minor compared to the other reasons you're making corrections for.
Yes, I don't want to build it up too much, but what Brian says about Coriolis is just off the scale. I made a mistake earlier. I'll see if I can find where we left off, and hopefully we haven't missed it.
This object talking attached to the surface of the globe Earth to be brought around for the momentum of a rotating globe Earth to bring it around in a circle, right? So they can't claim the conservation of angular momentum because they're claiming things that aren't attached to the Earth's surface are being brought around a circle. So they go and they claim the conservation of linear momentum, which has nothing to do with circles or globes or spheres. It's linear, it's straight line, it's nothing to do with it. And how they're doing that is it's a back calculation, but they're straightening out. They're basically straightening out a latitude line and just determining miles per hour speed of rotation based on that latitude, blah, blah, blah. And it's just a different miles per hour speed due to go along with a 15 degrees per hour rotation at that latitude due to the size of the latitude. But the momentum they're claiming is a linear, which is straight line momentum, which is a conservation of straight line momentum, where something has been moving, is being thrown from something that's moving in a straight line, and it conserves its momentum for a short time, right? But the conservation of angular momentum is what they should be claiming with a rotating body, and they're not claiming it because most of them don't understand it. But those who do know that the object has to be attached to the rotating body that it's supposedly conserving the momentum of, right? So they're wrong on all counts, but it doesn't matter because let's whitewash all that away and we go into the fantasy that they have for the moment. So let's just say this is a drone. This is a point underneath the drone on the Earth, on the globe Earth, right? This is a celestial body above the drone, right? As if the drone is being brought along by the momentum of a rotating globe Earth, as they claim, right? Then as the Earth moves, right, the drone will move with that point underneath it on the ground. And for an observer in a helicopter or seeing it from a drone, the celestial body will appear to move, right? So as you can see, the celestial body is staying stationary because in their model, the sky is stationary, but the Earth, the globe Earth is moving, right? So as this moves, the celestial body stays stationary, and for an observer that's here, as far as they're concerned, the Earth isn't moving, the celestial body is. And that's the Coriolis effect, where it's the observer here in the helicopter, right, thinks that the celestial body is moving, but only because they're moving along with a rotating globe. So they think that this is moving, but it's actually them that is rotating and moving and not the celestial body, right? That's the Coriolis effect. Now they've convoluted that into a load of nonsense. That's just all it is, an optical effect. So this
there it is. Coriolis is an optical effect.
Oh, well, I was just laughing again because he's moving a drone literally thousands of kilometers within seconds in that demonstration. And, I'm just thinking, again, completely incorrect scale, no comprehension of scale, and doesn't even understand what Coriolis is. That's another example of him not even having a clue what Coriolis actually is. But like he's moved the drone. I've got lots of drones, and the range on probably the furthest range I can fly one is about 10 kilometers. And it'll take 10 minutes to get that far. So to just draw a drone moving thousands of kilometers to scale in seconds is just ridiculous for starters.
Yeah, but I just can't get over. He thinks Coriolis is an optical effect.
Well, that's a common thing. That's a common thing that him and his cronies tend to say. But I've got them all absolutely cornered with one example that they all run from. Every single one of them runs from it, including Brian. And it's really simple. And if you just give me 30 seconds, I can explain it to you. If you have a roundabout, and you draw a line from one end of the roundabout through the center to the other. So it's a straight line, basically the diameter of the roundabout. And you now start that roundabout rotating very slowly. Let's say 10 degrees every 5 seconds. So fairly slow rate of rotation. And now you want to fly a drone across the roundabout to remain over that line at all times. So basically the roundabout is rotating, the line on the roundabout is rotating, and you're physically controlling the drone to remain over that line at all times. The question is, do you need to make corrections to remain over that line at all times? Now, the obvious answer is yes, which defeats their entire argument that it's just an apparent situation. Because the movement of the Earth opposed to the movement of an aircraft or something, it is an actual divergence, and if you don't make corrections, you will diverge from the desired flight path. And that example with the roundabout, if you don't make corrections, the drone's not going to remain over the line on the ground. So you physically do need to make corrections. I've had Sleeping Warrior cornered with that one, he ran. I've had Mr. Oakley cornered with that a number of times, he ran. And Brian asked him that question a number of times and he just wouldn't answer it, because anybody with an ounce of common sense knows that the correct answer is yes, you have to make corrections to the drone. That defeats their argument entirely.
Yeah, it's in a different frame of reference, really.
Yeah,
You're trying to put it in the same one by making it hover over the same spot, but that's a lot of effort.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's not attached.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I've had enough of Brian. My brains are getting rather numb.
He's a strange one. He's a very strange one. Yeah. I don't know if you know the background, but I challenged him to a debate a number of times, and my go-to proof, and I've got 40 years of doing this, is flying aeroplanes around the Earth and flight planning, is that the equations that we use for flight planning, they irrefutably factor in the curvature of the Earth. They factor in this equatorial radius. They factor in the oblateness, the 1 in 298 flattening ratio. It's all there in the flight planning equations. So I offered Brian the opportunity to debate me in a flight plan, and as he admitted later, he only agreed to it to try and get me into the debate, and then he wasn't ever going to talk about flight plans. But the thing I asked of him is that you need to produce a flight plan prior to the debate so I can test it in an aircraft, and then we're going to discuss it. And as soon as I gave him aircraft data, and it was very simplified data that would have made it quite easy, he just backed down. And he pulled out of the debate. And a few people saw that conversation. It's quite a while ago, but he'll deny it, and he denies backing down. But if I ask him to debate now, he hides behind a €5,000 fee. He's just absolutely got no hope of producing a flight plan, and he knows it, and that's why he's backed down. And because I just kept asking him, he eventually blocked me. So I've just don't bother with him anymore.
they're so terrified of actually testing their beliefs, aren't they?
Well, absolutely. I think what they're also terrified of, and I think anyone that's been dealing with flat earthers for long enough knows this, they all suffer from weakness at math. They all have, the ability of a third grader in mathematics or less, and you start throwing equations into the discussion or asking them to produce a real number answer, and they will run and they will deflect. And I said to Brian, I said, look, one of my agendas in the debate will be to explore your weakness in math. I told him outright, I wasn't going to trick him or lie. I gave him that as a heads up, and that just had him absolutely panicking. So another reason why he backed out.
Were you a bit generous saying a third grader could beat a flat earther?
I think so. In some cases, yeah, absolutely. In some cases,
because I know in Flatzoid's case, your daughter beat him.
Oh, that was incredible. I just couldn't believe, and that 35 times 1,000 was one thing, but did you see his him trying to work out the angular size of an ant? How he just got so confused by the decimal point. The ant went from 0.004 of a millimeter to 4 centimeters and everything in between, because he just, every time he talk about numbers, he would confuse where the decimal point goes. It was like, wow, this is just another perfect example of flat earthers just not understanding basic math. And that's a warning to any flat earther out there. If you ever work up the courage to debate me, I'm absolutely going to explore your ability in math. So
and I want to be clear about something there. It's okay for Brian not to know these things. It's okay for Flatzoid not to be good at maths. It's not okay. It's okay for other flirts not to be good at maths as well. But absolutely. then you try and use that to prove that you know better than all of science. You haven't got a leg to stand on.
Yeah,
if you don't know something, just admit it.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses. And I'm nothing compared to like guys like Walter Bislin or Ruhif, who are absolute whizzes in mathematics.
Professor Bell's just joined us.
Yeah, but I know how to flight plan, and that's what I do. That's what I do for work. But and everybody's got their weaknesses too. And I'm not trying to attack a person for being weak at maths, but I'm trying to demonstrate the fact that all flat earthers are weak at maths, and that is why they don't understand simple concepts such as how the equatorial mount works. That's basic geometry, and anyone with a basic grasp of geometry cannot refute the fact that the equatorial mount proves the Earth is not flat. But the flat earthers just lack this ability, and this is the whole reason why I would try to expose that in a debate, not to embarrass the person, but to make a point that you cannot be a flat earther without having below average ability in mathematics and a grasp of geometry. And that's not attacking them, but it's just something I noticed right away. And over the years I've explored it, and it's just been such a consistent common denominator with every flat earther that I encounter. They struggle with math. They can't visualize things in 3 dimensions. They don't understand why the equatorial mount proves the Earth is not flat. It's like, these are just such simple things that I think a person of average intelligence would understand this when they were 12 or 13 years old. But the flat earther, they've got something not right in their heads, and I'm not attacking them for this, but it's a bit like you encounter a colorblind person. A colorblind person has a disability. They can't see colors like normal people. And a flat earther, there are conditions such as dyscalculia or aphantasia, and these are known conditions that affect about 5% of the population, and it prevents them from processing mathematics and geometry correctly. And I think this is a root cause with many flat earthers as to why they can't understand such simple concepts that we explain to them over and over.
Yeah, I've seen similar things, and the colorblind analogy is really good, because people who are colorblind, red-green colorblind, for example, there are other types, they know that red and green exists because other people have been able to tell them. But they don't think it's all a conspiracy against them. So, because you see traffic lights, and they're obviously using the red light, but it's the top one. It looks grey to them, and so they just, after a while, because my dad was like this, they learn that the top one is the one you stop on. But it's not a conspiracy against them to hide to get them to use to go when it was supposed to be stop or whatever. But that's the way flirts look at it.
Yeah, exactly. And I've encountered quite a lot of people, because I've mentioned dyscalculia in videos and in comments many times, and I've had some really really honest comments from people who know the Earth is a globe, but they will openly admit that they have dyscalculia and they struggle with numbers, but despite this, they understand that the Earth is a globe. So it's not like everybody with dyscalculia is a flat earther. I would not say that at all. In fact, the majority would not be, but I would say almost every flat earther that I've encountered exhibits some of the symptoms of dyscalculia, which is inability to understand mathematics and inability to visualize things in 3 dimensions. So that's just my personal theory on the whole inability to understand these simple concepts. They just don't get it.
I reckon there's a PhD in psychology there. It'd be nice to get someone to do that one.
Yeah.
So the next person, we were talking about flat earthers not wanting to test their beliefs. This is from a channel called Flat Earth Tests, would you believe? It's actually Brian Leake, another Brian. There used to be a whole lot of Nathans, and they sort of self-destructed, and now there's Brians everywhere.
Right. I've heard of him, but I'm not really that familiar with him, so this will be interesting.
Yeah, he's pretty dopey. But he had a debate with Ruhif, and I was hoping Ruhif would join us, but he can't do it now. We'll have him on another time. And Ruhif absolutely tore him apart. Tore him apart. It's on Modern Day Debates. I think it was about 6 months ago. But what Brian did is put up on his channel his presentation, leaving out Ruhif's bit. So I thought we'd have a quick look at that. I am sharing. Good. I can just press play.
All right, in this debate, I'm going to point out how the sun angles in Sydney and Australia and other places don't work, and the globe model is not as perfect as people think it is. And this is the subterfuge, the magnetic declination. It's like a fix-all, if you will. So it says magnetic declination or variation is the angle on the horizontal plane between magnetic north, the direction the north end of the magnetized compass needle points, corresponding to the direction of the Earth's magnetic field lines, and true north, the direction along a meridian toward the geographic North Pole. This angle varies depending on position on the Earth's surface and changes over time.
So he can't complain that he doesn't know what it is, because there's the definition. I think it's amazing his thought process from this point on. This is going to be fun.
As soon as I hear them say the globe doesn't work or this doesn't work, like I instantly think, well, no, that just means you don't get it. That just means you're not processing it correctly in your head. Yeah.
Right, or he's believed a straw man. Because
someone
told him to think that.
Yeah.
So yes, watch what he does. He's so, like I said, he's got the definition. He knows what it is, and watch his thought process from here on.
Okay.
So it has to be done on a horizontal plane, and or it doesn't work. I'm going to show you that later on in this presentation. But corresponding to the direction of the Earth's magnetic field lines and
so the first thing is he's picked up on horizontal plane, and that's a trigger word for him, obviously. He's thinking, oh, that means it's flat Earth. No, horizontal plane is a geometric concept. Anyway, I accidentally jumped ahead a bit there, so let's think. All right, so it was there or so.
It doesn't work. I'm going to show you that later on in this presentation. But the first person to discover it, they say, was James Clark Ross back in 1831, where it was 70 degrees north and 96 west, which is insane. And then 70 years later, almost, Amundsen in 1904 measured it at 70 north, 96 west. It barely moved a couple miles in 70 years, and then all of a sudden it just jumps up. But whatever. So they have.
He obviously can't comprehend what he's reading there. He doesn't understand how magnetic fields on planets work, and he just sort of says, "Oh, I don't understand." So whatever.
Yeah, that's right. They just love to use words like incredible or insane or ridiculous, and it's just those are just alarm bells for them saying, "I don't get it." They don't understand it, or their mind can't process it. So in their head, it might seem insane, but to everybody else, it's quite reasonable and logical.
And it never occurs to them that, well, okay, everyone else gets this and I don't.
Yeah.
What do they know that I don't? And let me read up. Let me find out. But he just doesn't even think about that. He just assumes it's something wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Was I reading in the Wolf Pack chat today, or was I reading it somewhere else that that self-awareness is directly related to intelligence too? So if you're lacking basic self-awareness, it's probably a sign of low intelligence. I read it today somewhere, and I thought that's a good one, which is so true, because these flat earthers just seem to lack such basic self-awareness that everybody else gets it, but they're the only ones not getting it.
Yeah, and that's why I can see why they feel it's all a big conspiracy if that's the case, but
yeah,
they can so easily fix that, and they just don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Geomagnetic pole and the south geomagnetic pole, and then they have the magnetic pole, north and the south magnetic pole. So currently we're at 86 north and 164 east, and so there's 3 poles. You have the geographic north, the magnetic north, and the geomagnetic north, and they all have their own purposes. So they don't even line up with each other. But so you wonder what's the geomagnetic poles for? And
I found that telling. He just said they all have their own purposes. So he seemed to accept that, meaning, okay, they're different for a reason. And then he seemed to expect them all to line up. But if they all lined up, why would you need 3?
Yeah.
You should know this. For the audience, can I get you to explain what the geomagnetic pole is, as opposed to the magnetic and geographical?
Well, the geomagnetic. No, I would rather look that up before I just try to pretend that I'm
in the same boat. It's not one that comes up a lot, is it?
I'm not going to pretend that I can give you a good definition of that. But certainly the magnetic North Pole and the South Pole is simply where the compass points, and that's not co-located with the true North and South Pole. But no, I'd certainly like to look that up and come back before just...
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you might know off the top of your head.
No, that's okay. No, so, I don't, and I'm honest enough to say it.
Yeah, unlike a floof. So the true one is meaning the North Pole and the South Pole are the axis of rotation.
Yeah.
So that's the magnetic one is where the magnetic poles are of the Earth's magnetic field.
Yes.
So that moves around, and it moves at different rates at different times. It's been all over the world, according to geological records, because you can determine it by the way crystals align when they're laid down. So they move around. It's generated by the Earth's crust. The mantle. So it's that's the magnetic one. The geomagnetic one, I'm not quite sure what that is.
I'm just reading it now. I've just Googled it. It says the geomagnetic poles are antipodal points where the axis of a best-fitting dipole intersects the surface of the Earth. Theoretical dipole is equivalent to a powerful bar magnet at the center of the Earth, and comes closer than any other point dipole model to describing the magnetic field observed at Earth's surface. Okay, so possibly it's a little bit different to where the magnetic north is.
So okay, I'm not sure what the use of that would be, but it's basically saying if the Earth was a proper magnet, this is where the poles would be, the magnetic poles would be. But of course, the Earth is a planet. It's made up of different materials, and it's not consistent all the way through, and that's why the magnetic field moves around.
Yeah, this one might help. This one might help. That what is the difference between magnetic pole and the geomagnetic pole? The magnetic poles are the actual poles of the Earth's magnetic field, but are not antipodal as they do not pass through the Earth's center. The geomagnetic poles are antipodal as they pass through the center of the Earth to represent a dipole bar. Okay, so it's just in how they
it's a theoretical one.
itself. Yeah, just how they physically manifest itself, I guess. Yeah, okay, that's something I learned. Yeah,
I'm not sure what the use is of a geomagnetic pole then, but yeah, it's you don't line up a compass with it, so I'm not sure what you'd use it for. But I guess that's something for us to research.
Yeah.
All right, let's let Brian continue.
Because they're at 80.8 north and 72.7 west. That's a long way off. That's in Ellesmere, Canada, and that's where people think the magnetic pole is, but it's not. That's what it says. What is the geomagnetic poles used for? It's the center of open magnetic field lines which connect to the interplanetary magnetic field and provide a direct route for the solar winds to reach the ionosphere. Yeah, it's the model they show you with the perfectly centered magnet in the center of Earth. It's just a bunch of BS. It's for make their planets work. It's not, has nothing to do with reality.
How did you think we came up with it in the first place, if it's got nothing to do with the reality?
Everything gets hand waved, doesn't it? It's just all rubbish and it's not reality. Like, that's all they give you, but they don't give you a reason why they make that claim.
I mean, we went out, we studied the magnetic field of the planet and what's there, because compasses work. So, why does he think that we just made it up? Do we make up the compass needle moving?
I have no idea.
They're just crazy.
Yeah.
So geomagnetic pole versus magnetic pole. The magnetic poles are the actual poles of the Earth's magnetic field, but are not antipodal, as they do not pass through the Earth's center. So for all the people who said, just look at the South Pole and you could figure out the declination, that's wrong. They're not antipodal. It changes as it goes around on a globe. It's a jumbled up mess. But it's
well, he's correct there, because first of all, who would say look at the South Pole and figure out the declination?
Yeah.
I don't think he understands what declination means. This is a PhD Tony thing. There are variations in the magnetic field all over the Earth. As I said, the Earth is not one consistent magnet.
Yes. So
in different places, the compass will be affected by the local magnetic field. So it's not going to be pointing to true north. It's not going to be pointing to magnetic north in those local areas. There might be more iron there or less iron.
Exactly.
And so there's a declination, meaning it'll point away from the magnetic pole a certain amount. And knowing that declination, you can make an adjustment so you head in the right direction.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
It's a fix-all, like I said, and it's going to become pretty apparent. So I was looking at the declination. I was like, how many poles are there? And so I looked it up, and it says 2 dominant magnetic poles and several weak quadrupoles, of which there are at least mathematically about 8 in number. There's all kinds of poles. They have to do this to make their model work. They have to.
This has got nothing to do with declination.
Turn and twist shit all over oblivion. So here's where it's.
Me no understand, so Earth ain't flat.
Yeah, exactly.
That's basically what he's saying.
And again, he's just using the standard Flirt mantra that they have to do this to make their model work. Well, how about you do something to show us how your model works? I've never seen a flat earther ever show me a flat Earth model that even remotely works. So they're still not even trying. Yeah.
And it just amazes me they deny the fact that all this is based on data. We didn't make it up and then find data to match it. We went out and saw what the situation was and then came up with a model to match that. And
it works.
We refine that until it's useful.
And it works. And our model works. Yeah.
Unlike the flat Earth one.
Which
generally doesn't exist. Because they don't want to be pinned down to a model, because that way they have to defend it with actual objective evidence, and they never want to do that.
Oh, exactly. Like the Gleason map. It's like when I first saw that, like in 2016, it's like, you're kidding, right? They presented that as a model. I said, you're kidding, right? Like you actually think Australia is twice the width of the USA. I've flown Sydney to Perth more times than I can remember, and LA to New York numerous times, and LA to New York's further, but not according to the Gleason map.
Not to mention Southern Hemisphere flights between Sydney and Santiago or Johannesburg.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's even a flight between Buenos Aires and Johannesburg.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
shows that everybody refers to the northern hemisphere magnetic north. Okay, so do pilots fly magnetic or true north? Since the beginning of flight, pilots have been using the magnetic compass for navigation. It doesn't matter if you're flying a Piper Club or a Boeing 747. You'll find a compass in the cockpits of any aircraft.
So first of all, as a pilot, you can verify that's true. There are magnetic compasses in your cockpit.
Yeah, there is. There's not actually in the there is in the old Global. I haven't seen one in the new one, but with the avionics now, certainly it's true in light aircraft. Certainly true. You've got a compass and you've got a directional gyro that you must align to the magnetic compass, and you're constantly aligning it because of transport wander, drift, and that sort of thing. But in the airplane I fly now, it's all the calculations are done on true north, based on the actual mathematical model of the Earth, and so all the calculations, all the flight planning, everything's done on true north. But you have the option to select if you want it displayed on your instrument in magnetic or true, and most of us just have it in magnetic because at the end of the day it doesn't make that much difference. You're not actually just constantly making little heading corrections. The autopilot's doing it all for you. It's flying true tracks across the ground, and it's displaying it to the pilot as a magnetic direction. Now, that's relevant, I suppose, because runways are all magnetic. When you're flying an instrument approach, all the directions on the charts, they're all in magnetic. So, so basically having your instruments showing it to you in magnetic is going to correlate a lot more with the charts and everything that you're using for the approaches. But yeah, absolutely, we do use magnetic directions in aviation.
Yes, Todd Ferguson, Flurfament technician. That's an interesting name. He's saying that it's the standard Flurf mantra. I completely misunderstand science, therefore it is debunked. Checkmate, globetards.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah.
And remember, this is the context of this. This is meant to be his presentation for a debate. He hasn't presented any evidence yet. It's 3.5 minutes in.
Yeah.
Exactly. He just complained and said it's all a conspiracy, basically.
Yeah. Well, okay, just going on that. Sorry.
Yeah, you go.
Yeah, just looking at that. Do pilots fly magnetic or true north? Well, I'd have to say both, because even back in the day, not in the early 80s, when I was first learning to fly, and I was doing all the flight plans by hand, and with a little slide rule and just equations on a bit of paper. You always need to know the true direction, and then you adjust for magnetic variation, and then you add the wind and you work out a magnetic heading to fly that is going to give you a true track across the ground. So you're doing both. On a flight plan, you've got both. You've generally got the true course and the magnetic course. So yeah, I'd say it's both. I would say it's both. My answer to that would be we fly both.
Yeah. I mean, the point of having the magnetic is because that gives you a direction. Yeah. And if you know the declination, you can find the true.
Yeah.
And then you can, choose where you actually go, but you might look at it from the magnetic point of view, I guess.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But it's just a relative by the declination. Yeah.
One of the common charts that any student pilot or private pilot will tell you is a world aeronautical chart. And, I've done all that back in the day. You get a pencil and you draw a line between point A and point B, and you measure it with a protractor. And, as long as the distance is not too far, then, you're basically flying a rum line. But as long as the distances between waypoints are not too far, that's pretty close to a great circle back in the day. But once you've got that and you measure the protractor, you've got to apply the magnetic variation to get a magnetic heading. So, magnetic is because what the old airplanes, light aircraft show in their compasses. You've only got the compass. You don't have the flight management system and a triple inertial reference system actually giving you true courses
based on GPS.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Goran Anderson says, are the Polish poles divided into North Poles and South Poles? I guess there's East Poles, West Poles, and Central Poles as well.
I love the comments.
Yes.
Gary's going to turn up any minute now.
Well, I think he ran away when we asked him to join us. So.
How do we fly? how do we know where we're facing or where we're heading? A compass. Or you could refer to a model, but you can't use that model to prove a model. That's what they do, and that's wrong. Look here, it says the following methods require.
He says it's wrong, but he doesn't explain why. A typical Fleur, he'll make statements, but don't back them up.
Yeah, exactly.
That you have a general idea of your position. So if you don't know where you're at, you can't even use magnetic declination. So GPS receivers have internal data which aligns with the declination. So it's already in the GPS receiver. It's in the SunCalc data. So you could take your map and line it up with a known landmark to figure it out. But it says, look, it says here that the Polaris has almost a 1 degree radius around the north celestial pole. So that allows up to 1.5 degrees of. So you go to look up what's the magnetic declination. So I looked at Perth. It says plus 14.62, and that didn't line up. So I check another place and it says 14.62, but then it says it's close to 0 on the same page. So then I check my location.
Hang on. What do you say there? On the same page, it's Eastern Australia can be up to 12. Oh, okay. Sorry, I misread that. I thought it said Eastern Australia was close to 0. Let's see him continue.
Same page. So then I check my location. It says -6 degrees in Jacksonville, Florida. I kept looking and it said 0 degrees or almost 0 degrees in another place. Anyway, Mitchell from Australia goes to check the due east sunrise on equinox there in right.
Hang on, what was his point there? he found two things on Google that didn't match with each other, but didn't explore it. I don't know why they were different. He clearly doesn't either. So why mention it in his presentation for a debate?
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy.
Right outside of Sydney, and SunCalc pegged it. It was perfect. But what they didn't tell you is that declination is included in all the calculations. They don't, but it certainly didn't line up with the compass. So let's take a look.
Candles Beach.
Before we get into Mitchell, we have a guest. Hello, Wally. You're on mute. Last time Wally tried to join, it was difficult for him. So see if I can unmute him. Oh, he's muted himself.
Where's Wally?
He's in the stream, but he's he has to do it on his end. I think he's joined it without hooking up a mic. Anyway, we'll leave him there and we'll continue with Brian. Well, Mitchell now. God, Mitchell. We've had Brian Leak, we've had Brian's Logic, and now we've got Mitchell. Oh dear, what are we doing to ourselves?
Hope everyone can see that. It says Candles Beach right there. Put it over to the camera. All right, so zoom in here. I've got the park bench. Zoom right in, park bench, the shower, and I'm right there in between. Correct, but as I'm going to show you afterwards, using my compass, the only true direction that we can ever achieve magnetic north, from magnetic north, that sun right there is not rising 90 degrees east. There it is, right there. And exactly where I thought it was going to be. Beautiful. That's right. It does not line up. Those rocks out there, those rocks right here do not line up with 90 degrees on my compass. And that is the only thing that we can use to get a true reading.
Hang on, is he just going to tell us that it didn't line up? He's not going to show us.
He's just confusing all his terms. Well, firstly, he's wrong. You can determine the direction of true north by local noon of the sun. So when the sun's at its highest point, any day of the week where you can see the sun, when the shadow is literally at its shortest in most situations, that's going to be the direction. Depending upon where you are on the Earth, it'll either be the direction of true north or true south. And then obviously east and west are 90 degrees either side of that. So he's wrong saying the compass is the only way to tell. And, you know, I don't know if he's in Sydney there, he's got a 12 degree 12, 13 degrees of declination error. So you're not going to be using the magnetic compass to give you the direction of the sun anyway. And the other thing that flat earthers always forget is that the equinox geometry is based on the center of the sun crossing horizontal. So if you're on a hill and you're looking slightly down to the horizon, and you just measure it from the tip of the sun appearing, that's not accurate. It's got to be the center of the sun at a horizontal line from your point of view. That's the geometry of the equinox.
Yeah, he's I believe he's from Jarvis Bay, further south of Sydney.
Just south of Sydney, yeah. So it'd be around 12, 13 degrees declination. Yeah.
But yeah, unless he shows us the compass pointing to the wrong thing, he hasn't got a point.
No,
he's just telling us that and expecting us to believe it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I measured with my compass, the only thing that can measure an absolute direction. I measured 81 degrees to the point where the sun rose. Those rocks right there. 91 degrees is over here. I would not see this sunrise from this position
measurement
if it actually rose 91 degrees.
Speaking of other people, they said just check your sun at high noon. But if it's here,
so he didn't actually show us the measurement. He just claimed it. I just can't believe he did that. That's just appalling. So I don't know what Brian's going to get into here, but I'm sure it's going to be funny.
Here it is, 5:45 in Sydney, and it's going to, if it goes 15 degrees an hour, it's going to line up 6 hours later north. So that is not going to tell you where your true north is. Anybody who tells you that is not thinking. I mean, basically they're saying that if you have magnetic declination that's off, then your sunrise and sunset's going to vary wildly. And you see here, it just goes on a 12-hour day. And so the time of day would have to vary too. Look, this is for Australia. See how all these continents shows them.
How the hell did he conclude that?
They just have no concept. They really have no concept.
And I think he was making the mistake too that noon was the same, 12 p.m. is the same as solar noon. The time zone for the east coast of Australia is 1,500 kilometres wide. That's going to have an effect.
Yeah, of course.
And Sydney's right on the eastern side of it. So, I don't know whether it's coordinated with Sydney, but that was just gibberish.
Local noon's never 12 midday, unless you're just exactly on a specific latitude,
Yeah.
Only
by accident.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be the same.
Yeah, exactly. That's why
it's just a convenience.
That's why I've got a time zone, which is an hour. Yeah. Can be an hour difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise we'd have to have lots and lots of time zones, and that's inconvenient. So.
Yeah.
But it's so obvious that why don't FLIRS understand that anyway?
Yeah.
Flaring out. And so here's another, they have to spread the map. They're spreading a flat map. So this is east, or this is to the right of the Bering Strait. And it's all east declination. Then you cross the Bering Strait and you go down and it's to the left. So there's a zero line right there, and they just basically spread it out. All their
Now he's confusing declination with the Mercator projection.
Yeah. They just have no idea. They literally just have no idea. It's like if you had half a brain, they'd be dangerous.
If you had another brain, it'd be lonely. It's just
you've got to
these
pity
idiots.
Them. You've got to pity them. Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They're just low intelligent, and I'm sorry to say this, but let's call them what they are. They're poorly educated, generally low intelligence, and not particularly honest people. So
definitely not honest. That's probably the biggest trait, that they're all dishonest. They have to be.
Yeah.
But and that'd be fine if they didn't go around saying that, making videos like this, basically saying everyone else is wrong and I'm the smartest brainer that's ever brained.
I don't know if you saw the comment from Gary Wybenga in the chat then about the equatorial mount. He's been parroting that based on a conversation I had with Bob the Science Guy, where Gary has completely misunderstood what I said, completely twisted what I've said, and he's just continually pumping that comment out. He's been doing it like a parrot for a long time. And every time I see him do it, I'll ask him a question that has him completely cornered and he'll run. So Gary, we know you're listening. Come into the chat now. Stop hiding behind the fact that you say you're at work. Come into the chat now. Let's talk about equatorial mounts, and I'm going to drill in your level of knowledge to see just how much you know about them and how much you don't know about them. And I've got a whole bunch of questions that I know you cannot answer, and that's why you won't join.
Okay, I've got a message from Colin, but it's about something else. He's asked me to pass on a Scott Manley video to you, so I'll do that later.
Okay.
Let's continue with Brian.
Sure.
And I mean, if you look at the magnetic declination maps, it's pretty obvious. They're just spreading everything out. So here's due east. This is due east with no magnetic declination. You see the angle when I zoom in, it's going to be 90 degrees to the meridians. And so this is about 12 degrees underneath.
What's this got to do with declination?
Like a 11-degree angle? No, so you have to use a flat plane. That's more than 11 degrees. It's like 25 degrees. And that's basically from Sydney. Now here, so what I do here is I'm showing you 86 north, 164 east. That's the magnetic North Pole. So I'm going to trace it down to Sydney. It's a straight shot. Look, that's where the magnetic North Pole is. There should be no declination if that's what we're going off of, because look here, all the way down to Sydney.
So he clearly doesn't know what declination is. He's confusing geographical direction with magnetic direction.
Yeah, he just doesn't understand. And he doesn't understand what you mentioned earlier. You know, the land masses affect the isogonals. You know, the direction of the magnetic variation in any particular location. So just drawing a line like that is absolutely pointless.
Yeah, he's not comparing apples and apples because he doesn't understand either apple.
No, not at all.
Hang on, I've lost my cursor. What's happened? Oh, there it goes.
It's a straight line. So why would there be any declination? Watch as I back out. It follows right along the meridian. They must be talking about geographic or interplanetary North Pole.
Interplanetary?
Use it. It might be off a degree, if that.
Intergalactic North Pole.
Interplanetary pole.
Oh, dear.
It's just staggering that they can't possibly figure this out.
Yeah, it is. It is. I just feel sorry for them. I really feel sorry for them. I just think they're just unfortunate people who don't understand and never will, and just making fools of themselves on the internet. Yeah,
and like I said, it's okay not to understand it. It's okay not to know. It is a problem when you go and pretend that you know more than other people.
Well, if I tried to
mislead people.
If I tried to make a video on teaching people how to dance, you know, I would make an absolute fool of myself because I don't know how to dance and I have no clue how to do it. But I'm aware of that fact, and that's why I stay away from the subject. But flat earthers just lack that self-awareness.
It's just...
It is hilarious.
This is why we laugh at you, Flurs, because you are stupid enough to go on and not understand your limitations and present rubbish like this.
It's insane. So next I'm going to check the South Pole. And I'm wondering, why do the Southern Hemisphere continents not use the South Pole for declination? But look, so there's the South Pole over about 30 degrees off that way. So you're not going to use the South Pole to get your declination in the south, and you can't see Polaris and the sunrise. I mean, look at 90.
Why can't we see Polaris?
I saw 90.
Yes. Also, he's admitted that the Earth's a globe.
There's a big Earth in the way.
Yeah. But it's just funny. He just has no idea what declination's about. It's just hilarious.
Exactly. You look at the map of isogonals, they're all over the place, you know, because the land masses affect them, affect the direction.
And the yellow line is the due east. And there's the 90 from the South Pole. So think about this. If you're going to make a map to start with, and you have nothing but a blank canvas and a compass. So what are you going to do? You're going to draw it out basically, or you're going to put together a bunch of local maps and you're going to go by the compass reading. But if you already have a model, you're going to have to make adjustments to make it all fit into your model. And that's what they do with magnetic declination.
No, it's
Hello,
the other one.
my gentleman, of course.
What the hell? Oh, sorry, that wasn't supposed to come up. No, it's the exact opposite. We go out and see what is actually out there and figure out, okay, well, what does that tell us about reality? And what can that teach us that we can make use of? And we build our model as a base of that. We refine it as more data comes in. And then we use that until something better comes along. Flat Earth isn't it.
I've been saying to them for nearly 7 years now that if you just show me a map that works and you can show me a flight planning equation that I can use in my aircraft and it works between any locations on the Earth, you'll convince me. But of course, that's never going to happen, and they don't even try. And what I find even funny is they just run away when you ask them. They won't even try to answer that for you.
Yeah, so demonstrating integrity that FLIRFs are known for. Anyway, so this is from Derp, or Dirt, as Arctic Reflection calls him. Go on.
No, Dit. I'll just call him Dit.
Oh, Dit. Okay. So I haven't actually watched this one, but it's so common a meme amongst FLIRFs that I feel I know what it's about. And he tends to put copyright music in his videos, so I'm going to play this one without sound. But from the looks of it, it looks like it's just going to be words. It's about the SR-71 Blackbird versus the Space Shuttle. Do you have a sense of where this one's going?
I've seen this one. I know exactly how to answer it, but play it, and then I'll.
Yep, I do too.
Yep.
Let's see. Yeah, from what I understand, these sort of style, this is the kind of thing. You don't need to have sound. He's going to tell you the relevant things. So Concorde, that's thin, slick, and fast, but it could do only Mach 2. And that's not a jumbo jet. That's a 737, 200 from the looks of it. That's an old jet. Well, Concordes are pretty old too.
Yeah.
Yes, the Blackbird is amazing.
Yeah.
And you can go up to Mach 3.2.
Yeah.
So about 50% more than the Concorde. It wasn't designed to carry people sipping champagne, though.
No. I've actually responded to Dit on his video about this years and years and years ago, and I just got deleted and blocked.
Yes, all very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no. If the outside is 500 degrees Fahrenheit when it lands, then it's not very aerodynamic, because that's air resistance causing that.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can get more aerodynamic than that, but
yes,
that's a minor point.
He's wrong there. That's a straw man.
Yep.
It's not aerodynamic. It doesn't have to be aerodynamic.
And it doesn't go Mach 22.
Not in the air. Yeah.
No. Because Mach is relative to the medium that it's in.
Yeah.
If it's in space, it's not going Mach at all. It's going Mach 0.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're talking about the space shuttle here because that's what the title of the video is. And he can't believe these bolts hold it on.
They don't have to be aerodynamic. Yeah, I'll explain why. Yeah.
Not a conduit.
Yeah, we can see the problem. Derp doesn't understand.
No, it's not that we're part of the problem. It's that you're a problem. Derp, that is.
Dear, oh dear. I remember the very first time I watched this. Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah. Okay.
In other words, Space Shuttle goes fast, therefore flat Earth.
Yeah. All right. Do you want me to go?
I don't know if there's what else is coming up, or is he just going to compare the three? Because there's a fair bit of the video to go.
Yeah.
Oh, stop believing the lies of space travel. What else? Earth is flat. Flat Earth Dave. Right, just in case you didn't believe this was one of his videos. Yep. All right, you might as well go.
Okay. Strength is not the issue. Efficiency is the key word here, because the Concorde and the SR-71, they are flying in the atmosphere all the time, and they have to fly at those speeds in the atmosphere for hours and hours and hours, and they've got a finite amount of fuel. The Space Shuttle doesn't have to stay in the atmosphere for hours at those speeds. It literally gets up high enough to be beyond most of the aerodynamic drag within minutes. So it can burn a hell of a lot of fuel within 3 or 4 minutes of those boosters however long they burn. So it's not efficient at all. So it doesn't have to be aerodynamic, because it's burning a whole lot of fuel to get up and above the atmosphere before it can go really fast. And anyone that's sort of followed rocket launches, they know a phrase called max Q. Max Q is the maximum aerodynamic pressure, and it doesn't happen at the ground. It doesn't happen at the higher altitude. It sort of happens at a midpoint in between, as the vehicle is accelerating and the atmospheric pressure is reducing. It reaches a point where the vehicle has experienced the most aerodynamic pressure that's occurring, a combination of the air pressure and the speed it is traveling at. And that's why they throttle back, because they do have structural limits, and that's why they quite often will throttle back upon reaching max Q. And then as they continue higher and higher, the air pressure reduces, so the forces on the vehicle reduce, and then they can accelerate again. So basically, you're comparing apples and oranges there. Concorde and the SR-71 fly in the atmosphere, and they have to do it for hours at a time on a finite amount of fuel. The Space Shuttle just needs to get up above the atmosphere, and it does that within minutes, and it burns a whole lot of fuel just to do that. So it doesn't need to be aerodynamic, because they throttle back for max Q, and then when they get up high enough that air resistance is not an issue any further, then they'll accelerate again. So it's just a nonsense argument. It's a nonsense argument straight away. As soon as I saw it, I thought, it's about efficiency, and that's the reason they're so different.
It's putting a conspiracy in the minds of the ignorant. That's what they're doing.
That's what it is.
A conspiracy that doesn't exist.
Yeah, and because the average flat earther doesn't understand aerodynamics, and I'm not saying everybody does. I mean, I've done years of study on it, so I understand it. But the basic concept is that the faster you go, the more air resistance you're going to have, and the higher you go, the thinner the air is. So you sort of find the sweet spot where you can go high enough and you can go fast enough. It's not going to be an issue. But the Space Shuttle gets above all that. It gets up to the point where there's literally no air resistance, so it doesn't become an issue at that point.
A long way past. Max Q on the SpaceX rocket that took off 2 days ago was about 12 kilometers. And Space Shuttle orbits at 400 kilometers. So, it's a long way where it doesn't need any air at all.
Yeah, exactly. So the max Q, 12 kilometers, that's where they would throttle back. Then they get higher and higher and higher, up around 25, 30 kilometers. The air's a lot thinner, and they can start to go much faster again without having any of the issues of the aerodynamic drag.
Yeah, it just shows how much of a charlatan Derp is. He must know this. He can't be that stupid.
Yeah. Well, I heard, and I don't know where I heard it. It was a long time ago. Somebody asked him, "So what are you going to do when flat Earth is over?" He says, "I'll have to get a real job then, I suppose." Yeah.
Flat Earth will never be over, because we will always have stupid people.
Yeah, exactly.
It's Anyway, that's pretty much what I had to talk about today.
Okay, that's great. No, it's been really enjoyable.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. It's been great to talk to you again. It's been a while since we had a live stream together.
Yeah.
We spoke about Brian then too, unfortunately.
It's funny. So I sort of dabble a little bit here and there, pop out a video occasionally, but I kind of find that, when I look around, what are the flat earthers doing? They're just repeating themselves. And, most of the time when I see them post something, I think, well, I've already got a video about that, so I don't need to just repeat it. But, I like to just sort of watch what's going on. I sort of got a bit of time and effort invested in flat earth. So it's just funny just watching it just slowly fade into oblivion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, and as Daryl Limbs just pointed out, you and I are in different days now. We're in tomorrow.
Well, I'm still 11:37 in where I am. So
12:07.
Funny time.
7 minutes past midnight here.
Very good. Yeah.
But a lot of our listeners are in the UK, where it's just early afternoon. So.
Oh yeah. Hang on. There's a question from Ugly German Truths. Isn't the Mach speed in the thinner upper atmosphere also lower than at sea level? Yeah, it's all related to the speed of sound, and the speed of sound reduces as you get higher. So, yeah, it is the Mach speed. So a certain Mach speed is going to be different if you're doing Mach 0.8 at sea level or if you're doing it at 50,000 feet, for example. That's definitely true. Yep.
And at 400 kilometers, it's zero because there is no medium, and you can't have sound, so it's an irrelevant measure.
Yeah.
So anyway, but flirts don't get that because big numbers scare them, so they use them to scare other flirts, which Dirt's obviously doing. But yeah, thanks again. It's great to have a chat with you, and it's always good to chat with you. We chat every day, basically, don't we?
Yeah, we do on the special secret Wolfpack chat.
So enjoy your NASA Black site while you're there, and don't get too reprogrammed.
Yep. All right, girls, you can just start talking again now. I've kept them all quiet for this show. Yeah.
Bound and gagged, eh? Yeah.
Oh, that's not.
Yes.
Have you been watching?
Well, I have a secret NASA camera in there. You see.
True. Okay, no secrets amongst Wolfpack. Yeah.
It's a shame Wally couldn't connect, but we put him up there just so we can give him a bit of advertising.
Maybe next time. Yeah, all good.
Yeah, we love our Wallies.
Sounds good. Yeah.
It's what we've saw 3 of them tonight. So yes, thanks once again. I'm sure we'll meet up again soon. I'm planning a video to put one together at least on Anzac Day, which is Tuesday. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that'll be out on Wednesday or so. Yep. It depends on what happens. It depends how I feel. I might just feel like I want to have a day off, but we'll see.
No, I'll just pop on the camera again, and the reason I'm doing that is because I'm definitely not going to ever be a hypocrite. And I say to flat earthers, I say when I debate you, it's going to be on camera and you're going to show your face. Because I'm not afraid to show my face on camera, so I don't ask them to do anything that I'm not prepared to do myself. So. Hello, everybody. It's Wolfie. Yeah.
Well, I don't show my face on camera because I'm afraid that other people might die as a result.
I'm sure it's not.
And plus, well, there's that, and the other part is it's really hard to get all my face in the camera shot. No matter how wide the lens is. So. All right.
Thank you. Thanks, Hugh.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Wolfie. Welcome to all the new jar souls. Thanks to Daryl M. Thank you very much for that, Daryl. And I don't think we've got much left.
There's nothing left to do but cue the corgi.
You're despicable.